viewers. Welcome again to Global Verses YouTube channel. And again, we are privileged to have one of our poets all the way from Tanzania. And this is Godoni Yohana, or sometimes he appears as Godoni Yohana. But I think it's the way you may want to pronounce it, but it's Godoni Yohana, all the way from
Indeed.
Kigoma. This is a teacher who fell in love with poetry and is one of our valued member in Godon Verses. So welcome, Godoni or Godon Yohana. Welcome to the interview.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ngugi, for this golden opportunity you have given me. I really recognize your efforts in empowering creative writers from all over the world. Keep it up.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So who is Godon Yohana? Can you tell us a bit about yourself, where you are born and where you went to school and what are you doing currently?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Patrick, my name is Godon Yohana Bayarimo. I am a Tanzanian. I was born in 1989 in Kigoma region, which is a western part of Tanzania. I grew up in Kigoma and took my primary school education here in Kigoma, and I finished my primary school education. It was in 2003, but also I joined upper secondary level, which in Tanzania you call it advanced level studies. I finished in 2011. Then afterwards, I joined the University of Dar es Salaam in 2011 and graduated in 2014.
Okay.
Afterwards, in 2015, I was employed as a teacher because my education was based in Bachelor of Arts with Education or a bachelor degree in Arts and Education, which is basically for teaching. So from 2015, I've been teaching until now.
That is about 9 years, almost 10 years.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
And what do you teach them? What were your
I
subjects?
teach English. Okay, my subjects are English language and literature in English.
And that was a choice you did, or is it because of maybe your marks? Or is it are you interested in, have you all been interested in literature, or so just a coincidence that you're taken there to teach
Okay,
literature?
well, here in Tanzania, when you apply for the chance to study in the university, you just apply. You just choose a course like Bachelor of Arts with Education. Then the issue of subjects is made by the responsible authorities. However, if you feel like you are not contented with the selection they have made for you, depending on the marks, you may just change. But when I saw, when I saw that they just selected me to study English language and literature, I was so much interested in English and literature. So I said, let me continue with these subjects. And so I went on.
Okay, so were you always interested in literature? Or was it because they put you in literature and then you said, yeah, this is good? Before that, were you interested in literature? Is this something that you loved?
When I joined in upper secondary level, I took, I was studying history, English, and Kiswahili.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was studying those subjects, I fell in love with literature, and I started making analysis of some of the literary works by myself. So from there, I continued falling in love with literature in English. And there also as a means to improve my English, because as you know, in Tanzania here, we have the problem with English language, so I started writing poems also as a means of improving my English. So actually, I fell in love with literature in English on the way.
Okay. You mentioned something there that many people may be wondering about. What you say in Tanzania, there is a challenge of English. What could be the reason?
I think I can't be precise on what the reasons are, because there are some of the researches which have already been made by different people, and we don't have a single reason. We don't have one reason. But I think the problem here in Tanzania, the first problem I see is that English language starts to be taught starts to be used as a means of instruction in secondary school. But in primary school, teachers teach in Swahili, except one subject, which is English. And the English is not given enough time for people to practice, so they don't have platform to use that English. That is why it is a problem.
And I think that started during Mwalimu Nyerere reign, when I think because of I think maybe I'm wrong, because of the Ujamaa policy, where he wanted the whole country to come together and have one language, because I think there are about 100 tribes in Tanzania, but they had to come together and speak one language, and that language was Kiswahili. And so everybody had to study Kiswahili and then learn English later on. And I think personally, if you ask me, it may have its own advantages because it unites the country. The only disadvantage, the only disadvantage, as you say, is when it comes to now when you want to communicate to other people outside in the outside world. That's right. We have a challenge. And in a way, I would kind of agree with Mwalimu Nyerere, because if you look at the world today, Chinese don't teach English in their schools. And in fact, when they go outside, sometimes it's got to be translated for them. And very few countries, particularly those who are ruled by the British Empire, those are the ones who are, and the French. The French are forced the people to learn French, and the English countries are forced to learn English. And many of them don't know even their own national languages. Would you like to comment on that?
I think you are right. I don't have much comment. I agree with you, in fact.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, you said you come from Kigoma, and Kigoma is very famous. I think we have very, very many good musicians like Ali Kiba from Tanzania and Diamond. They are from Kigoma. What is so special about Kigoma and singing? And singing is a form of poetry. Can you comment on that?
Yes, I think in Kigoma, of course, as you said, we have a lot of people with talents, especially on music. I don't know the reason, but I would say that is a God-given talent. Yeah, as you said, in Tanzania we have many tribes, but if you try to look very carefully, you will come to understand that each part of the country has its special or has special things they have. So, for example, here in Kigoma we have musicians, but we have other parts of the of our country where footballers are there. We have other places where farmers, things like that. I think a place with many people, more than 60 million people, is a place of many issues, but here in Kigoma specifically, music is like a God-given talent. I would say so.
Yes, we also had people like Mbaraka Mushe, and I think he was Morogoro, so he was not from Kigoma. So we do have other musicians from other parts of the country in Tanzania. But then again, when you look at the old musicians and the new musicians, if you ask me, I think the old musicians were more poetic than the current musician. They had more parables and poems and parables and what do you call it, and rhyme in their songs than the current musician. Would you agree with me?
Yes, I do. I do. Yeah, you know, those old musicians, I would say they were so much creative. But these days, if you listen to different music of the current musicians, you come to understand that one of the biggest part they lie on is just dancing and maybe beats, you know, beats, music beats. But
And
when it comes to the issue
that,
of creativity and all those stuff like rhymes, it is just like, I would say, it's just like, additional issues, you know.
yeah, and
People,
again, also they also rely on dirty language.
yeah,
Pornographic
that's
language.
true. Yeah, that's true.
While musicians of the old, even if they could give you the same message in a softer way without mentioning using vulgar language, but saying the same thing, while the current one have to mention it. And some music you cannot listen with your children, for example, or grandchildren, because you know you will want to close your ears, don't want to hear. But the older musician will talk the same thing and everybody will be comfortable.
Yeah, that's right. However, we still have some of the few musicians who, you know, use good language in music. They don't use vulgar language, as you said. And one of them is Ali Kiba, as you said. If you
Ali
listen
Kiba,
to his
yes.
music, yeah, he's right.
Okay, that's good. So when did you start writing poetry? You said in high school or in college?
Yes, yeah. I started writing poetry when I was in high school. And as I told you earlier, it was in 2009. I started writing poems as a means to improve my language, English language, and as a means to practice writing skills.
Okay.
But on doing so, I found myself falling in love with poetry. You know, I read different poems of different poets. I was so much interested with them. So I started imitating what they did.
Okay.
I remember I was with one of my friends who is called Mr. Amos Ngalama, my classmate. We started writing poems. In the beginning, those poems didn't make sense. You know, I came to realize that recently when I was passing through the exercise book in which I used to write those poems. But they did help. They did help.
When you
Because
say
from there,
yeah. When you
yeah,
say
because
when you say they did not make sense, what do you mean they did not make sense?
They look like they did not make sense because of all the language that we used, and you know, and the level of English language that we have that time.
Yeah.
Actually, if you read them, you know, I wrote one of the poems that is called The Public Toilet those days. And I just showed it to some of the people. But recently, I think it was last year, I said, let me share this poem as it is. It's in its originality. I shared it on a platform that is called poemist.com.
Mm.
One of the people said or commented and said, this poem seems to be nice, but the problem is there are some of the awkward awkward English, you know. Yeah.
And yes, did you? And I think you shared the same poem, Public Toilet. I think you shared it on our platform. Have
I
you
might
ever?
have done so. I might have done so, but I think it was the edited version, not the original.
The audited it. But then the other question is, do poems make sense? Poems, do they make sense? You said the ones you are writing were not making sense, but I can ask, do poems make sense?
Okay, I think the audience are the ones to decide whether the poem whether our poems make sense.
Yes.
Because I think one poem can make sense to one person, and the same poem misses sense to another person. So it depends, I think.
And people who don't value poetry, they will think it doesn't make sense. So to me, I would say that poem, when you wrote it, and you just said it didn't make sense, it made a lot of sense to you at that time.
Yeah.
And
sure.
now when you show to somebody else, they'll say, wow, well, this is interesting. So I think it's really, as I say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The person who is looking at it and understanding it will say it makes sense, but maybe I would like to improve here and there. But there must be a message. I think if the message is there, then the sense is made.
You are right.
Yeah. So have you ever thought of putting your poems in a collection, an anthology? Or have you already done it, or are you planning to do that?
Okay, I'm planning to do this because, you know, I have a very good number of poems on the corpus. So I think it's time to make the publication. But now, you know, the problem comes on capital. You know, publishers demand some amount for publication. You can't publish for free. And so if I get some money worth publishing, I will do that. And yesterday, I was just talking to one of the publishers. These publishers books in terms of ebook, like we did. So I was just talking to him, and we are still talking. I don't know if I will afford, but I think even if it won't be very soon, but in the end, I will have to publish one of my poems.
Yeah, the challenge is that few people appreciate poetry, and even reading these days, even if it's fiction, not many people are reading fiction. They'd rather go and watch movies. So
You're right.
Traditional publishers who are used to publish for free are not publishing because they think there is no market.
It's true.
And so people have to do self-publishing, and self-publishing again is very expensive. But online publishing, which is an ebook, it's much better because anybody who wants your book, you can just send it to them and they pay you. And then you just advertise online. Anybody who wants it, you send it to them. And then who wants a hard copy, they pay for it.
You are right.
For publication.
Yes.
Yeah. So you teach my book, the interview.
Oh yeah, yes, we do. Yeah, Tanzania, we teach your book, one of the very burst book, novel. I don't know if it's a novel or a short story.
It is a novel. It is a novel. It's what we call a novella.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Right. Yeah, novella. I think that is correct. So we just teach the interview, which is the very fine book that you wrote ever.
Yeah, and I always tell people that I wrote this book in 1 month.
Wow, it's wonderful.
Yeah, because I was beating a deadline. I was entering it into a competition, and the
Mhm.
deadline was 1 month, and I had to do it in 1 month.
Okay.
And yes, and I came across the advertisement of the competition, 30 days
Yeah.
to the deadline.
Yeah.
I already had the story in my head. So I
Right.
just sat it and write. And the last day of the deadline, I gave the book and it was published. It did not win the first prize, but it was published among the other
Right.
among other runners up. So thank you.
Congratulations for that. And we are just enjoying it here in Tanzania. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
one
Yeah,
of the one of the countries that uses that book most of is Tanzania, I think.
yeah, I know it is. I know it's a set book in Tanzania, so that's also very encouraging for me.
Yeah.
So, do you teach poetry or you teach just fiction?
Okay, so here in Tanzania, when you teach literature, so you teach poetry, you teach novels, you teach plays, you teach theory of literature,
Mm.
unless if you feel like you are not very competent in a certain part. Now there, you decide to
You,
maybe to communicate with your co-worker, your fellow teachers who are competent in that part, then they help you. But I teach also poetry, and that is
okay.
one of my interesting part. I like that.
All right. So you're also a valued member of Global Versus, and you do comment and you do post stuff there. What do you think of that idea of Global Versus?
So global versus is a great idea,
Mm.
and I think it came at a time when we all wanted that, because Mr. Ngugi, as you said, we first of all we lack platforms. We lack platforms where we may share what we know about poetry. So, and we also lack people who are ready to support us, especially we who are young. So, getting an opportunity like Global Versus is a great idea, and I think it has to be improved by even maybe launching our radio that different from that of yours, which because that exposes us to the world,
Mm.
and we need to share our views. We need to share uh, our ideas, political ideas, economic ideas, through
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. And
yeah. So I think that is a great idea.
yeah, so there's the idea of okay, we started with that WhatsApp platform. We just opened the Facebook page, and I think more people will also go to the Facebook page or
Yeah.
Facebook group. And so we also have this channel, this YouTube channel, where we'll also
Mm.
be doing other things apart from the interviews. And eventually we can have that internet radio where people can switch anytime and listen to other people discussing, listen to poetry and so on and things. But that is, we are opening these sections gradually, and hopefully eventually we have that radio station. And also I intend maybe to give a suggestion of a monthly meeting through Zoom. People can put
That's
the link and we all meet there maybe once a month and talk and have a topic and discuss things. And so on, those ideas that eventually are going to come.
that's great. That's great.
Yes. So we are almost out of time now. Maybe you have a
Okay.
message or two to fellow members of Global Verses and also any other poets out there who may be listening to us. Maybe you have a word of advice or message.
My message is just to say, dear poets, write, fight for human rights, day and night, till humiliation runs away. That's all.
That's a poem already. That's a poem. So, Godoni, Yohana, I'm very grateful for you having taken this opportunity to join a Global Voices channel for an interview so that we can know more about you and also share your ideas and thoughts and so on. So, this has been a Global Voices podcast, and we've been having Godoni Yohana all the way from Kigoma, Tanzania, gracing this occasion and sharing us his wits and wisdom. And my name is Patrick Ngogi, founder of Global Voices. And until we meet again very soon, thank you very much and God bless. Thank you very much.